Today, we become legends.
With Year 11 being out for us to play for a little over a month now, I've had my chance to collect my thoughts on the good, the bad, and the ugly of what will probably be SMITE 1's final year of being fully supported. This isn't a SMITE 2 video, but I find it hard to imagine that SMITE 1 will be supported with as much effort and care as it has over the last few years once SMITE 2 comes out. Assuming it's successful and most of the player base moves over, of course. Titanforge have said they plan to support SMITE 1 for the foreseeable future and it will still receive updates, but I doubt it will be on the same level once SMITE 2 comes out fully. So, Year 11. Let's start with the good. In general, I think the meta of Year 11 is a ton of fun. Lots of different picks and strategies are viable, the classes are actually pretty well balanced despite what you might hear. There are kinks here and there, like hunter builds being pretty insane and mages being a little too weak after the removal of the class bonuses, but I think overall the meta is surprisingly balanced given we no longer have a pro league to worry about balancing around. And that probably leads Hi-Rez to making some more wacky changes and caring a little bit less about the balance of the game. Of course, having the game be balanced is important for all players, not just the pros, but that's where it matters the most and it's no longer something the devs have to worry about. But yeah, even with that, the overall meta of Year 11 feels really solid with plenty of different viable gods, strategies, and builds. There will always be outliers, it's impossible to have a perfectly balanced game, but in general, it feels really good. In terms of new additions for Year 11, it was a bit of a smaller patch than we're used to for a new year of SMITE, but one change I'm actually a huge fan of is the Comets. I was apprehensive about these initially, as you may have seen if you watched my initial patch notes review, but my opinion has completely changed now and I've had plenty of time to play with them. I'm always for more reasons to fight and pressure in the early game rather than just a passive farm fest and waiting for the next minion wave. And Comets give a great reason to fight, not just for the XP and gold from the drops, which is basically an entire minion wave's worth and definitely worth fighting over in itself, but the fact that Indra's Scepter is the drop and can only be picked up if you're the only remaining player in the area gives a really great reason to play aggressive and actually fight over these. Once you get the Scepter, it makes PvE a complete breeze for 60 seconds, which allows you to extend your lead. With how slow and defensive Year 10's meta was, it's nice to have a bit of snowballing added back into the game, and boy does the Scepter allow you to snowball with the amount of damage it puts out, specifically for PvE like minions, camps, totem, etc. Next up for new changes that I like, the way Beacon has been handled going from Year 10 to Year 11 was really well done in my opinion. Unleashed Titans were always a bit of a weird mechanic that seems cool when you describe it on paper, but in practice it was hard to use and control your game ending prospects from time to time, so I'm glad they're gone for Year 11. Making Beacon damage structures directly and only for the capturing team is another great way to force players to actually get active, pressure, and fight in the early to mid game. Year 10's Beacon gave some nice buffs for sure, but the fact that Unleashed Titans was a somewhat symmetrical mechanic made it so capturing Beacon wasn't quite as much of a priority as it should have been. Year 11 fixes this by giving the capturing team a non-symmetrical reward that's extremely powerful and can help you snowball the game a bit. This combined with the Comets really brought back fighting in the early to mid game and helped shorten the ridiculously drawn out games we all got tired of from Year 10. Great change. This is a small thing, but I also like the changes to the starts in Conquest, specifically the fact that mid and solo no longer have to do 3 camps at once to get level 2. Even at my level of play in High Diamond or Masters, people screwed the pooch on this start fairly often, and either the mid or the solo would end up with 20% HP going into lane and have to burn all of their pots just to get back to full. Not to mention it made some mid and solo picks significantly worse purely on the fact that they can't effectively clear 3 camps at level 1. The new starts are much improved on the old ones in terms of general feel in my opinion. The new wards are also a ton of fun to play around with as well. Fire Giant dances become a lot more interesting with a few Raven wards, and while proximity wards have been abused a little bit, I think they're a good addition overall. The jungle shop is really cool too, especially at a high level of play where you can pull the shop towards certain areas like around FG in the late game so your whole team can buy a new set of Sentry and Raven wards and completely dominate vision control around objectives. One change I wish they would make though is give some kind of visual indicator on the chest itself if it's going to be a shop. I guess it's sort of a skill expression moment to keep track of these, but the problem is that it's not just you clearing them. Your team might clear one on the other side of the map without you really knowing, and it can lead you to wasting the shot because you didn't realize it was coming. Make the chest golden or have purple particle effects or something so that we know when a shop is coming and can use it to the fullest. The new items are also pretty solid in Year 11 in my opinion. The return of Void Shield and Stone, or now Domaru, are extremely welcome, as is Blackthorn Hammer, even though it's a bit trash currently. The new Deathbringer glyph is cool, albeit a little bit OP at the moment, though it is getting nerfed in 11.2, thank god. The move of anti-heal to Executioner is also really nice for Hunter builds, as they can finally get anti-heal no matter their build choice, rather than being forced into crit or building Toxic Blade, which is a really weird to fit into a Hunter build. Crimson Claws is also a pretty cool addition to the game, along with the new passive Shards. Shards never really felt right, with only a small handful being viable and the rest being sort of useless, but I think the whole system is finally in a really good spot, especially with the buff to Vibrant Shard in 11.2. Moving on though, let's talk about a few things that I don't like about Year 11 so far. Firstly, the Relic overhaul is still a trash idea that should be reverted in my opinion. While my mind was changed on Comets, I can't say the same for Relics. Removing options and restricting player choice to replace it with a system that is brain dead and didn't seem very thought out given the timings on Relic upgrades coming through. Your second Relic will upgrade before your first sometimes, which is really weird. You will almost never get fully upgraded Relics before you finish your build, even in Conquest, and in other modes it's even worse, which just leads to players either waiting on them for ages and wasting their gold on power potions, or just spending the 1000 gold to upgrade them in the same way they did in the previous system, but with less options. Can these numbers be balanced out to where some of these problems are fixed? Sure, though they weren't in 11.2, which is a little bit weird. But even if and when these numbers are fixed to give a more sensible upgrade timing, this system is just plain worse in almost every way compared to what we had before, and is definitely one of the worst changes to come out of Year 11 in my opinion. I got a lot of pushback for my comments on this when we first saw the patch notes, but I think the community is starting to see why this system really isn't that great. And this is without even mentioning the other balance issues that have arisen from this, like Horrific being completely broken, Squishies getting level 2 beads way too early in the match and making them way too safe, Teleport being basically a must build on solos, giving you only one relic slot, etc. Just a bad change all around in my opinion, and I will stand behind that and keep calling for a revert back to the old relic system. My next small gripe with Year 11 is that there wasn't really much in the way of general balance changes. We're used to seeing some crazy buffs on nerfs at the start of New Year's of Smite to give the meta some freshness, but it does feel like most of the balance changes made to gods and items in Year 11 were extremely tame, and we're still seeing a lot of the same faces from the Year 10 meta be dominant in Year 11 as well. Sure, the meta has shifted quite a bit as a result of changes made elsewhere in the game, but I do feel like we could have got a bit more on the balance changes front to make it truly feel like a Year 11 meta rather than a Year 10.5 meta. And the final big negative I have for Year 11 is probably going to piss a lot of people off. I really don't like the teleporters. I'm fully prepared for the comments saying I'm wrong on this and you're entitled to your own opinion. Please do try and change my mind in the comments, as I've seen a ton of community members saying they absolutely love teleporters. For me though, I'm really not a fan of what these do to the game. Throughout the years, I've always been an advocate for a larger map and a more isolated laning phase. Teleporters do the exact opposite and incentivize fighting in the wrong way in my opinion. It makes the map smaller and positioning less important while making Conquest one step closer to just being arena with farming. I think some of this could be alleviated by making teleporters come online much later in the game. If they're more of a, this game has gone on too long, let's give them a reason to fight and end the game, I'm more okay with them. But as it is with them coming online at 8 minutes, I think it's just causing too many problems to be worth the funny meme clips you can make with these. If they came online at say 20 minutes, I'd be more okay with them. But even then, I'm just not really a fan of this whole mechanic in general, and I'm a bit sad to see that Smite 2 is leaning into teleporters as well. I am well aware I'm in the minority here though, so I guess I'll try to learn to love them since they're probably here to stay, at the very least for the entirety of Year 11. Oh, and one final thing just to piss even more people off, I don't really like the stacking changes either. This is a much smaller issue than relics or teleporters, as it doesn't fundamentally change anything about the game really, and honestly it's not even that noticeable for the most part. But this is another change that I'm just like, why? What was wrong with the old stacking system that incentivized player skill more than turning your brain off and just hitting abilities? Yeah, it's a small thing really, it's not that bad, but I just thought I'd mention it. But that's my full thoughts on the good, the bad, and the ugly of Year 11 Smite now that we've had a bit over a month to explore these changes. Please do leave your own thoughts down below on this, as I know I have quite a few hot takes here that a lot of people won't agree with. I'll be reading all the comments on this one for sure. Catch you guys in another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.